tuo fa l'americano, americano, americano. Ma si nati in Italia, sienta a me non c'è sta niente fa, tuo fa l'americano, tuo fa l'americano, tuo fa l'americano, tuo fa l'americano.
This is our last edition of Italics for the season, and we're jam-packed with stories, so let's get to work. First, we'll take you to the National Organization of Italian American Women's 30th Anniversary Gala, held recently at the Waldorf Astoria. Next, we'll go to the National Italian American Foundation's 2010 East Coast Gala, where Frankie, Valli, and the cast of Jersey Boys joined together to honor Mr. Joseph J. Grano for his contributions to Italian American culture. Then, we'll take you to the celebration of the 375th anniversary of the arrival of Pietro Alberti and his first steps onto New Amsterdam, now New York, and his place as the first Italian immigrant to this part of the New World. We'll also have some important updates on Saving Our Lady of Loretto Church in Brownsville, Brooklyn, the renewed effort to restore the advanced placement test in Italian, and tell you about a friend and a distinguished professor who has just become a little bit more distinguished. Now let's join correspondent Lucia Grillo reporting on NOIA's 30th Anniversary Gala from the Waldorf Astoria.
I'm Lucia Grillo with Italics. We're at the historic Waldorf Astoria in New York City, celebrating the 30th anniversary of NIAF, the National Organization of Italian American Women. We'll show you highlights of this evening's event and speak with some of the special guests, including Honoree Lidia Bastianich.
We are so pleased tonight to be honoring Lidia Bastianich and her wonderful family. Lidia, as you may know, is a distinguished member of this organization. Throughout our 30 years, we believe that our organization has made an impact on changing the stereotypes of Italian American women that have previously existed. One way we've done this is by accentuating the positive by honoring role models like Lidia Bastianich.
I recall the conversation I had over 30 years ago when I first met Jerry Ferraro and we began talking about this organization. And I asked her if there were any women's organizations in the community. And she said, no, just men's and women's organizations, where men made the speeches and the women made the coffee. But that was 30 years ago. Today, of course, we have our organization and a very busy beehive.
We thank you all for being here and supporting this event. We are also, God knows, very proud this year as our scholarship program has grown. From 30 years ago, it was one $500 scholarship, and now it's five $5,000 scholarships. Inez Di Meglio Senatiempo, Sacred Heart University, a BA in Spanish, Dean's List.
Thank you.
Our next winner is Lauren Mancia, working on a PhD at Yale University in history. And she will use this check to support research in France on 2 medieval Italian immigrants, which, wow, that's fabulous. Our last check is going to, last but not least, is Gabrielle A. Patti, who is at Hunter College studying adolescent education, and her minor is Italian. She's president of the Italian Club at Hunter College.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
This woman is truly special. She's popular on TV because she's very genuine. She's popular in our community as well. Her love of food in Italy are genuine. She is genuine, and you can't help but love her. The skillful chef that you see on TV is also very smart, very warm, and a very decent and caring human being whose well-deserved successes we're proud to celebrate tonight. Congratulations, Lidia, and thank you for all you did for us.
What can I tell you about Lidia that you do not already know? Award-winning chef, restaurateur, entrepreneur, author, TV star, philanthropist, and so much more. The first thing that people ask me when they know that Lidia is a friend of mine is, what is she really like? My answer is simple. What you see is what you get. She is the real deal, genuine in every way. She can be your best friend, your sister, your cousin, your aunt, or your mother. She is the epitome of what family is all about. It is no coincidence that she includes her family in her TV show or in every book that she writes. Every trip to Italy for her research is always surrounded by a family that she visits. She is the real deal.
And Eileen, when you came to me and you told me, we want to celebrate your family. And just something inside, I says, that's what it's all about. Yes, you know, without them, I am nothing. This lady here actually started, when we started our first restaurant, making gnocchis, making pasta, and continues and continues. You know, when they come over, or they're called, we're coming over, and she says, what do you want to eat? And she's right there. She's 90. And I can't tell you, with all the shows, the show's been on for 10 years, the one thing that I get the most comments on is about the family and what it means through that screen to watch us and how we interact as a family. And this is real. This is what we are. And the fact that maybe what our legacy or culture is transmit and goes through that tube and really affects out there people in the deepest way.
Grazie a tutti, siete molto buoni, tutti quanti, vi voglio a tutti bene.
I have a wonderful role model, obviously, as you all know, but these organizations like NIAF are so important for the next generation of Italian Americans because it preserves our heritage.
It's an honor to be here among my family and everyone here, so thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
What advice would you give a young woman who has the passion for food and cooking and sharing that you do if they want to pursue it as a career?
Maybe as in any career, they should be prepared, get the right education of themselves. They need to be committed and just go out there and do it. But in doing that, traveling a lot and experiencing. If you're going to cook, you need to understand the food of the different people, of different cultures, because that will open up many doors and actually communicate to people through food and their culture.
Frankie Valli and the cast of Jersey Boys honored Joseph J. Grano for his lifelong dedication to the advancement of Italian-American culture and heritage, and a new effort he is leading to create an exciting new cultural venue.
I'm Lucia Grillo with Italics. We're at the Hilton New York, where NIAF, the National Italian American Foundation, is holding a cabaret-style evening. Stars come out to a NIAF night in New York, which will benefit the foundation's educational program.
As NIAF marks its 35th anniversary, we extend our sincere appreciation to the greater New York area, which has been a pillar for our organization. NIAF's many successes through the years would not have been possible without our supporters right here in the Big Apple. I'm honored to host tonight's event and hope it will be a big success.
We are here tonight to have a good time, to celebrate our Italian heritage, and to do good things for others. And it may sound trite to say we're bound by food, but think about it. In a society where we're blown apart by all kinds of distractions, dysfunctional families, the Italian-American community sets the example. We still go home for dinner at evening with our children.
Now, please join me in welcoming the original Jersey boy and music legend. You know him best as the frontman of the Four Seasons. He's been honored by NIAF with a Lifetime Achievement Award and is a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, singing icon Frankie Valli.
On behalf of the National Italian American Foundation, I am thrilled to present to my good friend Joe Grano with this special award of recognition for his long service to the Italian American community. It is no surprise to me that Joe Grano, you are a successful businessman, leader, motivator, entrepreneur, Homeland Security advisor, and successful Broadway producer. Now, I don't know how many of you out there really realize that there might not have been a Jersey Boys without Mr. Grano, who helped to put the financing together.
Well, first of all, I wish I didn't bring any other investor in except myself. It's been a phenomenal success. Frankie and I have been friends for 30 years, and it was due to that friendship, when I needed the help, I was able to step in, and what comes around goes around. That's what it's all about, and the friendship has turned into one of the best investments in the world. And Jersey Boys today is #1 in the world. It's approaching $1 billion in sales. Thank you. I'm very proud of my Italian heritage. And I have been and remain a pretty successful person. And the older I get, the more I realize how much of it came from the values I got from my grandparents, my parents, my uncles, my aunts, like all of us. We really are, our generation, the last 20 to 40 years of us, we are the true product of their American dream. We really are. We were the first beneficiaries. We were the first generation that benefited for that sweat equity, for that hard work that they put through. And I'm so proud of that. And I will tell you, I go across the country speaking to a lot of universities, and I tell those young people, 50% at least of my success came from the values I got from that family. And I fight very hard to keep it together. The other thing I learned, which I didn't recognize, just how powerful a grandmother was. And, you know, I was very close to my grandmother, but I didn't realize, once the grandfather retired, she let him know you're not in charge, you never were, so get the hell out of here and go to tavern. And God help any of us that didn't show up for Christmas or Easter. She was the hub of the wheel. And that strength was so unbelievable. Of course, when your grandmother passes away and the family dissipates and moves out of the urban area into suburbia, it's hard to bring the family together unless it's a wedding or a funeral. When my mom died, I got a plot for about 40 people, because I wanted all my aunts and uncles and grandparents all together, and I had a monument designed, which, by the way, won #1 prize in the cemetery. And here's what I inscribed on the monument. It says, with the Grano crest, it says, the roots were in Italy, their dream was in America, the life was family and friends, and the legacy is our children. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Italian. That's Italian. I have to tell you, we're making a difference now, despite all of the legacy, stigma, and stereotyping. It's so great to see Italians evolve. And I'm so proud of the successes and the gains that we've made. Now, at the same time, I want to leave you with another message. What really disturbs me, though, is that we, as an affinity group, as an ethnic group, Italians have never been able to work together. There are about 2,000 Italian-American organizations in the United States. There's 17.8 million Italians in the United States. There's 4.4 million in the tri-state area. Now look at the power and the influence that the Hispanic society is having in politics. I'm not suggesting that we politicize ourselves, but I am saying that as a society, we can make a difference in making America great, but we've got to get our collective act together. Knowing Italians and how jealous we are of each other, and how argumentative we are, and how all of us want to be in charge like Al Haig, what we need is an iconic hub. And I'm pleased to tell you that we are in the finals of 30 down to 4. There's a building downtown, and it's Pier A, and it looks at the Statue of Liberty, and it looks at Ellis Island. And I want us, if we can win this bid, to have the best Italian-American museum in New York City. And I'll tell you how serious I am. I want a Roman chariot and a Ferrari to show the progress. I want to show the contributions of Italians in the world for the first half and Italian Americans for the second half. And I want our children to go to a place to see the culture that made us what we are in this room today. And the next time Bill Gates calls Dick Grasso for a seat in Rayo's, we're going to say, okay, if you put the Da Vinci papers in a museum. That's what we're going to do. So you're going to hear from me again.
I had the honor of playing Nick Massey of the Four Seasons and Jersey Boys for over 3.5 years, and that also means I had the privilege of telling the story of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons over 1,300 times. Now, I'd like to speak from personal experience. Because of the success of Jersey Boys, because of men like Joe Grano, who were smart enough to invest in this show and to help make it a reality, there are currently 6 companies of Jersey Boys nationwide, right? Incredible. Now, here's what that means for us. Because of Joe Grano's work, because of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons work, there are hundreds of actors across the globe who are telling their story, and what that means is there are hundreds of performers like themselves who can now buy their first home. There are hundreds of actors like themselves who can now afford health insurance. There are hundreds of actors like themselves who say, see, Ma, I wasn't totally crazy. The set that you're going to hear tonight, we've taken all over the country, and these boys are responsible for raising almost $1 million for not-for-profits. And that's all because of the trajectory of Jersey Boys and the work of Joe Grano and Frankie Valli. No, I love you like I do. No, I do. Don't know why I love you. Don't know why I care. I just want your love to share. I wonder why I love you like I do. Is it because you say you love me too? I wonder why I love you like I do, like I do.
After leaving Italy 375 years ago, Pietro Alberti first set foot upon the soil of what was then the city of New Amsterdam, now known, of course, as New York City, and he became the first Italian immigrant to this part of the New World. A consortium of Italian-American community groups gathered at Bowling Green in Lower Manhattan, where Alberti first set foot, and they honored him at the marker placed for the occasion.
First Italian ever to arrive in New York, Pietro Alberti, who arrived here on June 2nd, 1635, exactly where we're standing. This was New York when it was New Amsterdam. It was a tiny village composed of a few thousand people. And Pietro Alberti sailed into the harbor a day or two earlier, becoming enchanted by this young colony, and decided to leave the ship and took his first steps right here, which was the center of New Amsterdam. This, in effect, was the town square of New Amsterdam back in 1635. And exactly 375 years ago today, he was born June 2nd, 1608, and he arrived here exactly on his 27th birthday. Anyone coming to the colony had to present themselves to the Dutch authorities immediately and seek permission to stay here. And that's what would have happened on June 2nd, 1635. Pietro Alberti would have stood here, looked around in this colony, deciding to stay on his 27th birthday, and then headed into the fort to present himself to the Dutch authorities. And the rest is history. He spent the rest of his life here. He lived here in Lower Manhattan for a number of years. He married a Dutch woman in 1642. They lived on Broad Street for a while. And he first leased some land in Brooklyn to farm. Then he began purchasing land in Brooklyn, including the land on which Our Lady of Loretto Church stands today. In an incident, an altercation of some time between the Native Americans and some of the colonists in Brooklyn, he and his wife were murdered in 1655.
We got our good friends over there from New Jersey, and they're wearing the Alberti t-shirt, so I think that's really terrific that even in New Jersey you're celebrating today.
The Italian Historical Society, founded by my father back in 1949, was the organization that first recognized Peter Cesare Alberti as the first Italian immigrant in New York. Peter Cesare Alberti represents the beginning of the Italian heritage in New York, and there's a long, long legacy of the benefits of the Italian culture here. I need not reiterate them, they're quite obvious.
John LaPorte, the founder of the Italian Historical Society of America, was a mentor to me at that time and invited me to participate in the monument's dedication. I'm so pleased that his son, Dr. LaPorte, who is the successor president, we heard from him before, has continued in the spirit and in the footsteps of his father in giving, like the Berezzano Bridge, and that naming was a direct result of John LaPorte Sr.
I'd also like to acknowledge someone who won't be speaking but who's here, Frank Sciammi. I want to tell you about a project that he and some of us have been working on, which is to save Our Lady of Loretto Church in Brooklyn, which stands on land that was owned and farmed by Pietro Alberti, and hopefully that'll be one of the lasting achievements of the 375th anniversary.
After close to 60 or 90 days of strong fighting with the Brooklyn Diocese, we finally came to an agreement where it was announced with a draft of a press release late yesterday that the Brooklyn Diocese will absolutely not demolish the church. The ending of that result came from Frank Sciammi's negotiation. He came in during the last month or so as a negotiator, brought all the sides together. So the thing that I wanted to announce today is that the Our Lady of Loretto Church, built by Italians, represents the Italian immigrant history. It's an architecturally beautiful building that will be landmarked at some point, and it will remain there for the community for at least 100 plus more years to serve the community. Thank you.
Actually, I think that the history of Pietro Alberti, though he is not such a known name
in the history books, is really very important for its symbolic meaning, because it stresses the continuity of a presence, continuing, of course, on the footsteps of Alberti with the millions and millions who arrived here and who made the extraordinary presence of Italians in New York City. So there is really an important continuity along the centuries, never interrupted for centuries, from Christopher Columbus, from the very beginning to today. I would like also to mention another person who is a contemporary. He's an artist, Arturo Di Modica. We are here just close to the famous Bull of New York, the famous Bull of Wall Street. And it is important to know that this statue, this icon of New York City, was made by an Italian artist, a Sicilian living between New York and Italy. And with his talent, he made the monument, which is now being photographed by many tourists.
On Italics News Briefs, we'll bring you some of the stories making news in our Italian-American community.
Significant funds have recently been raised for the restoration of the advanced placement test in the Italian language.
Is something with NIAF and the AP?
Well, yes. At our board meeting in March, we've committed significant funding to the AP, and we're happy to see, too, that some of the other Italian-American organizations, I just saw a note yesterday from the Columbus Club, everybody's starting to really coalesce and make the financial commitment needed to match the commitment by the Italian government to save the Italian language. You know, they may say English is the language of business, but Italian is the international language of culture, and we have to save it.
An additional $500,000 must be raised by this October to restore the test for academic year 2011-2012, hopefully. Fred Gaudefe, Distinguished Professor of English and Italian-American Studies at Queens College and the Calandra Institute, has been awarded a Fulbright Scholar Teaching Fellowship. Professor Gaudefe will lecture in American Cultural Studies at the University of Salerno in Italy during the 2010-2011 academic year.
Well, that's it for this episode and the 24th season of Italics. You can see all of this year's episodes archived on the CUNY TV website. Early next season, we'll also be greatly expanding our program on the Italics web channel at livestream.com. Again, thanks for watching. I'm Anthony Tamburri. See you next time. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata. E buona estate.
Your precious love.